something has shifted behind the scenes of The Chosen, a quiet storm that fans never saw coming. Jonathan Roumie, the man who brought Jesus Christ to life with unmatched depth and reverence, has made a heartbreaking decision. After years of carrying the most sacred role on his shoulders, he is walking away. Season 6 will be his last. Not because he no longer believes in the story, but because it has consumed him. This is not just the end of a season. This is the end of a spiritual journey, and it comes with a cost, one that has shaken Jonathan to his core. For 6 seasons, Jonathan Roumie has been the face, the heart, and the soul of The Chosen. His portrayal of Jesus wasn't just about acting, it became a calling, a spiritual assignment that demanded more than talent. It demanded his spirit, his body, and his peace of mind. In the early seasons, he often described the role as a blessing, something he felt honored to carry. But blessings, when held too tightly, can begin to weigh like burdens. In the quiet corners of press interviews, fan events, and social media posts, Jonathan started to drop subtle hints. He spoke less about the excitement of the show and more about the emotional toll it was taking on him. He mentioned sleepless nights, moments of spiritual heaviness, and the weight of carrying Christ's story day after day. At first, fans didn't think much of it. After all, portraying Jesus would never be an easy task, but no one expected this announcement. Season 6 will be his last. The news didn't come with loud headlines or flashy videos. It came softly, like most sacred things do. A quiet confirmation in a behind-the-scenes conversation, a sigh between scenes. A long pause when someone asked, "Will you return for season 7? That silence said everything. People close to the production say this decision wasn't made in haste. Jonathan wrestled with it. He prayed, he wept, because leaving this role wasn't like leaving a job. It was like stepping away from a holy responsibility. But the truth is, he's exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. The role has demanded everything from him. And now, he feels he has nothing left to give. Season 6 is the climax of the entire story. The betrayal, the crucifixion, the ultimate sacrifice. And Jonathan knows this is the right time to say goodbye. If there's any chapter to end on, it's the one that breaks both the character and the actor. It's poetic, it's painful, it's necessary. But what led him here? Why now? And how has this journey transformed the man behind the robe? In the next section, we dive deeper into Jonathan's internal struggle, the emotional cost of becoming Christ on screen, and how playing Jesus every day began to unravel the man underneath. When Jonathan Roumie first stepped into the sandals of Jesus Christ, he couldn't have predicted what was coming. He thought he was preparing for a role, but the role ended up preparing him, breaking him, reshaping him in ways even he couldn't explain. As The Chosen grew in global popularity, Jonathan became more than just an actor. He became a spiritual guide for millions, whether he wanted that or not. In interviews, he once spoke about the surreal experience of people approaching him in tears, falling to their knees, calling him Jesus in public places. Airports, restaurants, church gatherings, people clung to him as if he were the savior himself. At first, it moved him deeply. But over time, that admiration turned into a burden, a heavy one, because behind every hug, every emotional thank you, was a man quietly wondering how long he could carry it all. Behind the camera, the transformation was even more intense. Filming crucifixion scenes wasn't just physically draining, it was spiritually overwhelming. Jonathan didn't just act out suffering, he lived it. He admitted during a private live stream that portraying the Passion of Christ wasn't about fake blood or makeup. It was about feeling the betrayal, the abandonment, the brutal silence of Gethsemane. And once you go that deep, you don't come back the same. The weight began to show. Cast members noticed it. Directors noticed it. He became quieter on set, more introspective. Between takes, he'd sit alone, hands clasped, breathing deeply, as if trying to release something his soul wasn't built to hold. And yet, every morning, he returned to the cross. Day after day, scene after scene, but it wasn't just the filming that was taking a toll. It was the spiritual warfare that came with it. Jonathan confessed that the deeper he stepped into the role, the more he felt attacked, mentally, emotionally, even physically. Anxiety, Sleepless nights, the haunting feeling that something was pressing against him, unseen but unrelenting. He wasn't imagining it. Those around him felt it too. Several cast and crew members have said that the atmosphere during certain scenes felt heavy, like the air itself had thickened, like they were stepping onto sacred but dangerous ground. Still, he pressed on. Not for fame, not for praise, but for the millions of people who said this show brought them back to faith, for the addicts who found hope again, for the broken families who reunited after watching, for the doubters who saw Christ differently, more real, more human, more divine. Jonathan often said, "This isn't acting, this is ministry." And ministry, as he's learned, always comes with sacrifice. That's why stepping away after season 6 isn't just a personal decision, it's a spiritual one. He's given everything, and now he must let go. But what does this final season look like for Jonathan Roumie? And how is he preparing himself for the most sacred, painful chapter yet, as the cameras rolled on? The Chosen season 6, something shifted in the atmosphere. It wasn't just another production. It felt more like a sacred ceremony, slow, painful, and unforgettable, because this time, they weren't just filming stories. They were walking through the most heartbreaking moments in Jesus' life. The betrayal, the trial, the torture, the crucifixion, and at the center of it all stood Jonathan Roumie, tired, silent, and surrendering everything he had left. Long before the first crucifixion scene was shot, Jonathan began preparing, not with rehearsals or lines, but with prayer. He fasted, he isolated himself, he meditated, because he knew what was coming wasn't just about blood and nails. It was about soul-crushing weight, and no script, no director's note could ever prepare a man for that kind of suffering. Reports from the set describe haunting moments. Filming the crucifixion didn't take a single day. It stretched across weeks. Day after day, Jonathan's body was bound to a wooden cross. The ropes cut into his skin. The fake wounds stung. The heat was unbearable, but even worse was the emotional toll. Between takes, he wasn't laughing or checking his phone. He was weeping, sitting in silence, breathing like someone trying to survive a storm that had no end. And he wasn't the only one breaking down. Crew members cried behind the camera. Extras walked off set, unable to continue. Even seasoned professionals said they had never experienced anything like it. There were moments where filming had to pause, not for technical reasons, but because the pain in the room was too heavy to carry. Jonathan wasn't just performing, he was offering himself, and it was destroying him, piece by piece. In a rare Instagram post, he wrote that he had become intimately acquainted with the cross. He didn't mean it metaphorically, he meant it literally. He had been carrying that weight, emotionally, physically, spiritually, for weeks, and it was showing. His eyes, once filled with light, looked distant. His smile was slower. His voice cracked more often. Fans noticed, and they began to worry. Still, Jonathan didn't stop, because for him, this wasn't just about portraying Jesus. It was about honoring him, getting it right, giving the world something that didn't feel like entertainment, but revelation, a window into the sorrow and sacrifice of the Son of God. He admitted in a recent conversation that the final scenes, especially the crucifixion, left him emotionally leveled. And it wasn't just him. He said others on set began feeling it too. The weight, the warfare, the spiritual pressure. Some even described it as a sacred kind of suffering, one that bound them together, not as co-workers, but as witnesses. Through it all, Jonathan leaned into prayer. He begged for strength, for clarity, for peace, because he knew what he was doing wasn't just acting, it was a sacred offering, one that would mark him forever. But how do you return to normal after this? How do you go back to everyday life after hanging on a cross for weeks, knowing millions of people will watch you die? Not as an actor, but as their Christ. Jonathan knows the answer. You don't. You don't return the same. As the final scenes of The Chosen Season 6 draw closer, a quiet realization is settling in, not just for fans, but for Jonathan Roumie himself. This isn't just the end of a chapter. It's the end of a calling. For years, Jonathan has carried a role that has defined him, changed him, and in many ways, undone him. And now, as he prepares to step away, He's not doing it with applause or celebration. He's doing it with reverence, with silence, with tears. Behind the cameras, there is a sense of sacred finality. Every step he takes on set now is heavier. Every word spoken, every breath drawn, feels like a farewell. Not just to a character, but to a part of his own soul. Because when you've lived as Jesus for this long, something inside you begins to blend with the role. The pain, the peace, the power. Letting it go is not just difficult, it's heartbreaking. In private moments, Jonathan has admitted that walking away from The Chosen is the hardest decision he's ever made. But he also knows it's necessary. The emotional toll, the spiritual burden. It's been too much. He's poured every ounce of himself into this final season, and now there's nothing left to give. It's not defeat, it's completion. He has carried the cross to the end, and now he must lay it down. Fans around the world are bracing for the goodbye. Some are in denial, hoping he'll return for future seasons or special episodes. Others are already grieving, feeling like they're losing a spiritual guide. Because for so many, Jonathan wasn't just an actor. He became a vessel of hope, of light, of faith. His Jesus wasn't distant or untouchable. He was human, tender, real. And now that portrayal is coming to an end. But in this ending lies a powerful truth, one that Jonathan himself has spoken about. He believes that every role, every season, has a divine purpose, that his time on The Chosen was never meant to last forever. It was meant to plant something, to awaken something, and it has. Churches have seen new believers walk through their doors. Families have reunited. People who gave up on God are praying again, not because of sermons, but because of this show, because of Jonathan's surrender. As Season 6 prepares for release, the world is watching, not just because of the story, but because of the weight behind it, the sacrifice, the truth, the raw, unfiltered emotion that can only come from someone who lived every frame like it was real. Because for Jonathan, it was. Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, has already said that Season 6 is the most sacred work they've ever done. And he's right. The care, the silence, the heartbreak behind every scene, it's not just storytelling, it's sacred ground. And when the world finally sees those final moments, when Jonathan cries out from the cross, when the screen fades to darkness, it won't feel like acting. It will feel like witnessing something eternal. And after that moment, Jonathan Roumie will walk away, not in shame, not in exhaustion, but in peace, knowing that he gave it all, that he poured out everything he had, that he honored the most important story in human history with every breath. This will be his final chapter, but the legacy he leaves behind will echo for generations. So as fans, as viewers, as believers, what do we do with this ending? We pray, we give thanks. And most importantly, we carry it forward. Because the man who brought Jesus to life on our screens may be stepping away, but the message he helped deliver will never fade. And now, we stand at the edge of something sacred. Jonathan Roumie's final chapter in The Chosen isn't just the end of an actor's journey. It's the closing of a story that reached into the hearts of millions. A story that wasn't told with just scripts or camera angles, but with prayer, with sacrifice, and with a quiet, unwavering faith. He didn't play Jesus to become famous. He did it to serve. And through his pain, through his tears, he gave us something eternal. We saw a man carry the cross not only on screen, but in real life. We saw him suffer, not just for a role, but for a purpose. And now, as he steps away, we're left with more than just episodes to rewatch. We're left with a deeper understanding of what it means to give your all, to surrender, to trust that even in the silence, even in the exhaustion, God is still working. Jonathan never asked to become a symbol. He never pretended to be holy. But in his humility, in his quiet strength, he showed us what faith under pressure really looks like. He showed us that ministry doesn't always look like a preacher on a stage. Sometimes it looks like a man standing barefoot in the dust, carrying a cross on a film set, whispering prayers between scenes. That's why this goodbye hurts. Because we weren't just watching a performance, we were witnessing something real, something that reached across screens and spoke straight to the soul. And now that this chapter is closing, we feel it. We feel the ache, the gratitude, the quiet reverence. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Jonathan's departure reminds us that even the most beautiful callings have an end, that even the strongest lights need rest. And maybe, just maybe, this ending is the beginning of something else, something we carry forward in our own lives. The courage to serve, the strength to surrender, the grace to walk away when the mission is complete. So, as the screen fades, as the cross is lifted one last time, we don't just say goodbye, we say thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for giving your heart to this story. Thank you for breaking yourself open so that others could be healed. Thank you for reminding us that Jesus wasn't just a figure in history, he was love in motion. And through your sacrifice, we saw him more clearly. Now, it's our turn to carry the message, because the journey of the chosen may be ending for you, but for the rest of us, it's only just beginning.